In 1935, Major General Smedley D. Butler, a two-time Medal of Honor recipient, wrote a short but incendiary book titled War is a Racket. In it, Butler dismantled the romantic illusions of military glory and laid bare an uncomfortable truth. Wars are often fought not to defend freedom, but to enrich a small elite while leaving the masses to pay the price in blood, poverty, and broken lives. Nearly a century later, Butler's words echo hauntingly in Ukraine. The ongoing war there has become not only a geopolitical struggle, but also a vivid illustration of how the costs of war are borne by civilians. Butler, a career Marine who served in conflicts across multiple continents, knew the cost of war firsthand. He described himself as a high-class muscle man for big business, and openly admitted that soldiers, whether they realized it or not, often became tools of corporate interests. The real winners of war, Butler argued, were the bankers, the arms manufacturers, the industrial tycoons, and the speculators, while the real losers were ordinary people whose lives were shattered. Butler described war as having two ledgers: the profit ledger, filled with corporate contracts, oil concessions, and arms deals. The loss ledger, filled with names, dead soldiers, grieving parents, displaced families, and wounded children. Ukraine's war has its own profit ledger. Arms manufacturers in the US and Europe have reported surging stock prices and record revenues. Energy companies have profited from price spikes caused by disrupted Russian gas supplies. Reconstruction firms are already circling, anticipating lucrative post-war contracts, but the loss ledger tells a far more important and devastating story. The cost of war is most tragically seen in its youngest victims. In Bucha, 15-year-old Yaroslav Kravchenko kept a diary when Russian troops overran his town. He described soldiers ransacking his home. "The Kadyrovites took our food. They turned the whole place upside down. We're just kids. How will Mom even know we're alive?" For Mark, a 4-year-old from Vasilkiv, the war came crashing through the walls of his home in the form of a Russian drone strike. His mother died shielding him from the blast. Mark lost sight in one eye and endured 10 days in intensive care. His father now faces the impossible task of raising a severely injured child while grieving the woman who saved him. These are not collateral damage in the sterile language of military planners. They are the real bottom line of Butler's loss ledger. In March 2022, Russian forces bombed both a maternity hospital and a theater clearly marked with the word "children" in giant letters. Survivors recall stepping outside for water and being killed instantly. Others remember the feeling of complete helplessness, where life and death seemed ruled by randomness. Across Ukraine, families like the Lebedevs and the Griniks have been uprooted multiple times, their homes reduced to rubble. Some live in temporary shelters with no certainty about when or if they can return. Elena Dyashkova fled with her family early in the war, but now, even back in Ukraine, she remains without a permanent home. This is the displacement Butler spoke of. Not soldiers conquering new land, but civilians losing all they have. War also creates battles invisible to the headlines. Olha, a Ukrainian woman diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma during the Russian invasion, endured chemotherapy while her husband was captured. Now in remission, she channels her strength into co-founding an organization for the families of Ukrainian POWs. Her fight is no longer just against cancer, it's against the silence and neglect that leave captured soldiers' families in limbo. Similarly, trauma researchers and aid volunteers report seeing psychological scars deepen each month. Harvard's Voices of War project records children reliving bomb blasts in their play and parents meticulously documenting every aid expense, as if accounting for their own survival. In the city of Huliepol, once home to thousands, only a few hundred remain, most living underground to avoid constant shelling. There is no running water, no electricity, and no functioning hospitals. A disabled veteran there put it simply, "We talk of returning, but there is nothing there." For Olga, the war's danger became terrifyingly real when she fled Kiev with her toddler David. During the journey, David developed a dangerous fever. Crossing through shelling zones and makeshift checkpoints, she eventually reached a border hospital, exhausted and terrified, but alive. Butler's thesis was not that all wars are avoidable, he acknowledged some might be necessary, but that the public must recognize the real accounting of war. The Ukraine conflict demonstrates this all too clearly. The profit ledger thrives: weapons contracts, resource deals, and geopolitical leverage. The loss ledger grows heavier: wounded children, shattered families, displaced millions, and psychological wounds that will take generations to heal. The people on the loss ledger rarely appear in profit-driven discussions about strategic victories or national interest. Yet they are the true cost of war, costs not paid in abstract billions, but in individual lives. When Butler wrote War is a Racket, he wanted Americans to see through the patriotic slogans and demand transparency, restraint, and accountability. His words are just as urgent today. Ukraine's war shows how easily human suffering can be buried under headlines about arms packages and political gains. Wars may be justified in the name of freedom, but they are paid for in the currency of human lives. Until the world confronts this truth with the same force as it counts the profits, Butler's warning will remain not just history, but prophecy.